We're going to say it together. Go. Howdy, folks. Welcome back to Viva la Cat.
Cats.
I don't even know what that's so
Slams
for.
up holla to you, top of the afternoon to you. Thank you for listening to us on this fine day. We've got Justin Hiles down in Nashville Square and Scottsdale correspondent Stephen Maurer reporting to you live on the greatest day of all days for the Irish, St. Patrick's Day. Justin, how did you celebrate?
I didn't. I
Good,
put on a green hat so you couldn't pinch me through the screen.
Because the real St. Patrick would not have liked you drinking. So
no, of course not. And yet,
but St. Bridget at Kildare, she turned a whole lake into beer. So I think we should celebrate St. Bridget. You know,
in
it
the
is
most
Women's
American
History
way
Month,
possible.
Justin.
Let's just take a holiday and smash a bunch of beer.
Yes,
why not?
That is what most holidays are for, anyway. So
that's true. That is very true. Well, in the spirit of St. Patty's Day, we remember the luck that we had and the luck that ran out. The Bearcats, unfortunately, met their match with another green team, the Baylor Bears, and unfortunately, the Revenge Tour, shout out Hunter for that fantastic name, ran short. But it was a lot of fun for the 3 games in a row that we won in the Big 12. We're going to put our staple on that, and we're just going to run with it. I think the Big 12 in general this year, obviously very difficult, but Big 12 turning definitely presented its challenges, but the Bearcats had a lot of exciting moments for however short it was across the 3 games that they got to play. And I think it was, it was good. It was good. It's something that we all needed at the end of the year, just to remind you of a lot of the traits of this season, but also to remind you that, there's still some fight left in them. And hopefully they can take that and turn that into something else. And hopefully they're playing some more basketball this week.
Yep. Yeah. I think it's fitting, Justin, that it did come down to the end. Our friend Donnie, he got nabbed by the Leprechauns last night, so unable to join us today. But in texting me last week, he's like, dude, it is just kind of sick that we have to play 2 straight games and then Baylor's just chilling there and waiting for us. And that's basically what they did. They kind of just chilled, and it took them a little bit. It took them about 15 minutes to get into the game, really. But then they really got into the game and used their fresh legs and really kind of took over in the second half. People were during the game were commenting how it was the same old mistakes. And it was a little bit of the same old mistakes, just a lot of bad passes and thrown away passes, just interesting shots, forcing it down, forcing a shot up when you got less than 5 seconds left on the shot clock. A lot of not great things, but I do kind of wonder if the legs were a factor. You have to remember as well that UC had played a game on Saturday, so it was their 4th game in 6 days, technically.
Yep.
And it's just, some of us have all played some form of AAU basketball, but it is just kind of like a little bit frustrating when you play a team that's completely fresh and you're just like dog tired, and
yep.
So I definitely respect the boys for like hanging with it, but not for nothing, Justin, they had a pretty solid 9-point lead for a good portion there and just weren't able to build on it. And I think that was their chance to really like give Baylor some trouble, is that if you built a crazy like 18-point lead or something just early in the game, they would have just been able to really try and build that up and allow their stamina to catch up while they're in the game and they have that big lead. But wasn't to be. Baylor's a good team this year, obviously. Didn't make it past eventual champion Iowa State. We'll talk about the Big 12 tournament later. But, a great run for them. I want to comment just on the Kansas game because we had recorded the night before the Kansas game last week. But and then on our spaces, I joked about someone was going to talk crap about Wes. But I didn't really see much of that. And there was just people saying, well, yeah, you should have won, which, I mean, okay, fair. But like, it wasn't like the Kansas fans were understanding of this loss. They were still upset about it. Like,
Yeah.
maybe that's just the Kansas mindset for basketball. We're like, yeah, we're good enough anyway. We should win these games. They had a weird year this year. They lost a lot of dudes, and they just weren't able to really like, finish it out in the end. And this was also a weird week for them too, where they're intentionally sitting out two guys. So I think they will probably be fine next week. And once Dickinson, well, it sounds like Dickinson might not be able to play, but if McCullough's back, they could probably still make it to the Sweet 16 just on that talent alone.
Yeah. And I mean, overall, I think there's a lot of, there's a lot of things that are working for the Bearcats in a game like that. But I think overall, we got a lot of favors. We got a lot of favors just with those two being out. But I think they have a lot of potential to, do something. But I'll say too, like, this is one thing that'll get lost on a lot of people, especially the Kansas fans and just the majority of the Big 12 when they look at a game like, oh, and media in general. Everybody just wanted to say, like, the Bearcats got a freebie because, you don't have to play a fully loaded Kansas. But I will say, people forget that they had national championship players on that starting five, and they had everything ready to go. And I think, honestly, like, it's no credit to Cincinnati for that. I think just kind of sucks. I mean, you honestly have to, like, look at the situation in general and just understand that that team played really good against a solid team that I think they had the same situation that we did against Baylor, where they got like one strong run in the second half that was like, okay, we brought the game back, but they exerted all their energy and then they just fell off a cliff.
Mm-hmm.
So
That, and then I do think, just Baylor provided some mismatches for us, and it was weird to see freshmen in Eves Missy just kind of like fooling Jameel Reynolds a couple times when he was getting fouls and making buckets. Like, that was a little bit weird to see. Maybe just like the talent in general of Baylor is better than us, but we saw in that game at Baylor that the Bearcats were only like 3 points away in that game. So it's possible that they could have been able to take advantage of that if they had fresh legs, but I don't think that they're able to. I don't think that eventually, like, it was just going to be enough, just because Baylor, like we said, was coming off fresh, and Baylor's a young team, but they've still just got that talent. And at one point, does talent outweigh experience and freshness versus rust versus rest? That whole debate.
right. Well, and I mean, I think that's ultimately, I think, just what got the Bearcats, because I really feel like they could have competed, and taken that down right to the end with Baylor, but unfortunately, those tired legs, like you said, I think that just gets advantage of you at the end of the season, especially when you've played, like you said, so many games in such a short window. Um,
Mm-hmm.
4 games in a week is just insane. And not even a week. I mean, it's what was it? 4 games in 6 days, right? So 5
Well,
days?
and then if you take that 4 games in 6 days, and then if you take that Oklahoma game, it was about 5 games within 9 days. So,
Right.
uh, and just like that's just a lot for anybody, regardless of like a Cincinnati team that already probably has like a little bit of a talent deficit. So
Yeah.
it was just a lot, and then it just kind of didn't work out by the end of the year.
Yeah. And I mean, I think this is one thing that we'll get to, when we get kind of to our season in memoriam. But there's a lot of moments this season where you could have just taken advantage of one or two small moments. And in this tournament, I mean, take advantage of one or two situations earlier in the season. You might not even have to worry about this tournament. You
Yeah.
might have a first round bye, but
Hmm.
instead, you have to play this stretch and you have to get to the semifinal to be considered.
Yeah.
And we've even seen, now that we've gotten through pretty much through to most of the games through Sunday, we've seen so many of these teams like on the bubble play their way in and play their way out. And so many teams that were very close they just didn't make it to the conference final. Even in some tougher conferences, they're out. I mean, I think
Yeah.
it's crazy. We'll get to this later too, but like NC State last night, they had a really tough season. They went through and ended up beating UNC in the ACC tournament and they get in. But the whole mantra of that entire thing was win and you're in, lose and you're out. No
Yeah.
matter what their resume was through the entire tournament. I mean, they played from the bottom seed. I think they were what, like a 10 seed, 11 seed, something
They
like
were a
that.
10 seed. Yep.
So like it just goes to show that like this part of the year can do a lot for you, but ultimately you kind of dig your grave by the time you get here. So you can either put yourself in a great position to succeed going into the conference tournaments, or it's do or die. And unfortunately for the Bearcats at this point in the year, it was do or die. And
Yeah.
live by the sword, die by the sword. So,
Yeah, I
um,
completely agree. And you make some great points about there. And I don't want to. Why don't we go ahead and do the season in memoriam, and go ahead and talk about some of those games potentially. But
yeah,
yeah, I think you're right, Justin. If we had been able to take advantage of some of these games, and then if you had just split one of the Xavier and Dayton game, I don't think like the concerns about the weak non-conference strength of schedule would have been there. And I also don't think that we would have been worrying, like really needing to get all the way here at the end. And then, you close out those two games against West Virginia, Oklahoma State. Maybe if you close out one of those games against Oklahoma, Texas, like that's 4 wins right there. You're probably dancing,
yep,
because their metrics are a lot better than a lot of the teams. Well, not a lot, but they're still pretty good. Like they're in that range. I tweeted it last week that North Texas was 30 in net and 38 in Ken Palm, and did not make the tournament last year. Were left out as an at-large, and it's still possible that the Bearcats finish with a top 40 in both metrics and are left out.
yeah. I mean, I feel like that's unfortunately the way the cookie crumbles and the version of the net that we're seeing this year. And enough noise I think was made around the whole idea of pandering to the easier schedule to doctor what net looks like towards the end of the year. But I really don't think that is what it comes down to. I think it just comes down to scheduling, and some teams schedule nice, some teams schedule very poorly. And unfortunately, I think through non-conference we scheduled poorly. It worked out to get some wins on the board, but ultimately, I think that still was a little bit more of our backbone, and we did need a little bit more preparation, because you look at that game even against Howard, where we almost blew that on the road. That should have been the first wake up call. I think it was to everybody, but that should have definitely been the first wake up call to say, okay, maybe we need to play a few more of these games. Maybe we need to sacrifice a loss here or there just to get those under the belt before you get into the Big 12 play. But
Well, and they
Steve,
also didn't have a. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say season memoriam.
Yes, let's remember some dudes and remember some games.
Let's unfortunately remember some unfortunate moments, but let's remember the good ones too. So I actually had put up a tweet this week, and this is what we're going to start off with. So we're going to start off on the pessimistic side, because there's plenty of pessimism to go around, and if you're not wearing green today, we'll digitally pinch you for your pessimism. Steve, what was the worst moment for you across the entire season for the Bearcats? 2023, 2024.
To be honest, like I think I have an idea what your answer is, so I kind of want to go away from it. I'm going to say the Dayton loss was potentially like the worst moment of the season. And I know it was early. Um, I wasn't really like upset about like Xavier, because we're on a losing streak. I don't know if you've heard from your Xavier fan friends, but we have not beaten them in a while, so that was obviously frustrating. But the weird thing was like, and I know Dayton's good, right? But that was kind of like a that last big team we had before the Big 12, and I think losing the way we did against them, and especially like in a game that was less than 3 miles from our campus, but we were outflanked by all the Dayton fans that were there. Just the combination of those things, and it being right after the football season ended too. It was a dark time. It was, I was definitely tweeting through it that night. It was rough, man. And just knowing that obviously we got better from there. But I think that game kind of made everybody think, oh my God, are we going to be just horrible? Because, Dayton is about on the same net level as a lot of the teams in the Big 12. And I think
Yep.
if, you put Dayton in our place in the Big 12 this year, they would have held their own. I think they would have been fine. So I think just that moment and then all the things around it too, just from a fan standpoint, I think that would be my worst game of the season.
That's fair. I'm curious. You said you have an idea of what mine is. What do you think mine is? I just
I'm
want
going
to
to say yours is the West Virginia loss.
know. No, actually. Mine would not be the West Virginia loss on the road. Mine would be the Oklahoma State loss at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Blowing a 10-point lead with 6 minutes to go against Oklahoma State was by far the worst moment of the season. And it's not just as a singular moment because, of course, this is going to take in so many of the other revolving things at that point in the season. Again, like so many other points in the season, but this game especially, it was do or die. Like you knew that you had to take care of business in this game and you just had to get out of there. You had to get
Mhm.
out of your own arena. And unfortunately, they couldn't do that. They lose 80 to 76. This is after they just scraped by on the road at UCF. But you had to win at Texas Tech. You lost 2 in a row to Houston and Iowa State at home. You win at UCF. And so you're like, okay, Oklahoma State, you take care of that. At least you don't have that quad 3 loss on your resume.
Yeah.
And maybe you can take this and roll with it a little bit. That point, I think, is where at least 50% of the fan base shut off mentally.
Mhm.
And you could feel it. Like you knew it the second that game ended. Like you knew that no matter how hard they tried for the rest of the season, that was kind of the dagger.
Yeah.
Because it really put a put a spike in your tire. And I think they had some decent momentum towards the back half, and that's just one that you had to have.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you walk away with an L there. And I think everything after that, of course, you turn that into a 3-game losing streak, and you only get away with it again at home against K-State by 2. So it really just that back half just was not great for the Bearcats after a pretty strong start to the front, which we all felt confident about. And you could start talking about those close games, those close wins, those close losses, how exciting it was. But I think that's where things really started to devolve.
Yeah.
So
I was watching some of the Big East tournament last week, and Rick Pitino kind of got blasted for coming out against his players after they lost to Seton Hall and saying like they were slow, and he was having the most unenjoyable season he's ever had as a coach and things like that. And the players responded; they won 6 straight after that. So and like they solidified their chances. Like they were 14-12 at the time of the rant, and they won 6 straight games and are probably in right now. It just like it seems like it kind of went the other way for UC, where
right.
February we kind of just got beat to hell, and we had heard things from the inside. Like I don't know if it's true or not, but we had heard that like the players were losing their confidence. They didn't feel like they could go out and continue winning games like that. And I think just playing after like the emotional high of Texas Tech, and then losing like 5 of your next 6 games or whatever it was, that was really the dagger there. And I think, like you said, capped off by the Oklahoma State performance. Like I thought you were going to say West Virginia just because that was really like, it was the dagger before like the final dagger, but
That's fair.
yeah, it was that, you're right. Oklahoma State one was the coffin nails.
Yeah. I mean, I think that one too, like you look at this and the way our schedule panned out, you had the UCF game, the first one, and then you play at West Virginia, and then you have at UCF, and then you play Oklahoma State. UCF was better than West Virginia, and they were better than Oklahoma State. So you managed to get that. But unfortunately, I think both of those games just absolute momentum killers. at those points in the season. And you could chalk up a lot of things to just not really going our way. And you could go all the way back to non-conference too. I think that's totally fair. Like you said before, I think that Dayton one is really a viable point because you have to do something in that game, and we just got blown out. Like that wasn't even close. And I think that was among the other things, that was one of your strongest red flags going into the Big 12, Big 12 conference play. But that's our worst moment. We got it out of the way. We can just dust that one off. Steve, what was the best moment of this season for the Bearcats?
I don't want to have recency bias, so I'm taking the games from the Big 12 tournament out of my selection here, and I'm going to go with the Texas Tech win. Just like, obviously the BYU game was great, a great win for them, but Texas Tech, like, I think it was because we mentioned it was after that West Virginia game. We were hoping for a split that week, and we were thinking that the split would be winning the West Virginia game, and we kind of thought that going 0-2 in that stretch would have been a real dagger. And you go and win that game against Texas Tech and against a great environment, great team, a team who's definitely going to the tournament. That was just like an amazing win, and I think it showed people that buy-in again to Wes, and it showed people what we can really do once. Like I wouldn't even say that was probably their A game, Justin. I would probably say that was like a B game for them, and Texas Tech was missing a couple guys for sure, but it was still just a game where the Bearcats were able to just gut it out and get a victory and win on the road in a really tough environment. And just for how elated people were feeling that night after we beat a top 15 team on the road, for the second time in a season, and knowing that that wasn't a fluke, that we won another road game like that, all the positive momentum in the world after that, which is why, I mentioned how much the month of February sucked, because we saw how high the team could, like how good this team could be at that moment, and they were unable to, unfortunately, live up to it after that.
No pessimism, Steve. You're turning your best moment
Sorry.
into a bad
Yes.
moment.
Yes. Texas Tech. That was awesome.
Texas
Who's the
Tech.
real red and black team in the Big 12?
Yes, exactly. We own the red and black. And they never got a chance to tell us that we don't. So until next year, Texas Tech fans.
That's right.
As for me, best moment. There's a lot of things. And Steve, I know you said something about recency bias. I'm going to take it down to one moment, and it's going to be the game against West Virginia, first round, Big 12 tournament. I know it's recency bias, but that game, I think, had every possible storyline you could have from the entire season wrapped up in one game.
Yeah.
And they came out on top at the end, and that was the most important part. But that game was awesome because it's the typical Cardiac Cats roller coaster. The whole thing, like when you package that game down, the Bearcats scoring 90 in a game this late in the season was crazy because they have not done that much at all this season. They've struggled to score high. But they were in cruise control for the first half. Back half of the first half got tight. And then, of course, West Virginia takes a lead going into the half. You see the great run. You see them fall flat. And then you see the other team start to get some momentum. And you're like, okay, I see how it's going to be. You come out of the second half. You're like, all right, game time. Bearcats going, put it on them. Nope. Absolutely not. West Virginia is going to crack this bad boy open to 16 points, something like that. And it's just going to get ugly real fast. And that's the point when everybody's like, all right, the entire season done. I'm sick of it. I don't want to watch it anymore. And then who other than Simas Lukosius and Day Thomas go on the absolute most insane tear, the best two individual performances from the 3-point line, but shooting in general that we've seen the entire season. Absolutely unconscious shooting for that entire back half, that second half. Average of 30 points between two of them, 60 points together combined. And they find a way to absolutely grind it out at the end of that game and come out on top and fight tooth and claw the entire rest of that game to come out and get a win. I think is so cool because, like I said, it's that storyline from the entire season. And that's what I'm going to take away from 2024. We can add more to this later. The Bearcats never die. As much as they possibly can, they will lead you on. It is the most toxic and abusive relationship you will ever be. Be a Bearcats fan, you will be abused. You will be abused mentally, emotionally, physically, but you love it. You
Spiritually.
love the chase, baby. You love the chase. And that's what you live for. You live for the high. And that West Virginia game in the Big 12 tournament was exactly that. And that's what we live for. That kind of
Yeah.
game right there. I don't care if West Virginia's good. I don't care if they're bad. That game was fun.
Well, and then again, I don't mean to be pessimistic, but I tweeted on during that day that like, please conference basketball gods, give us a good conference tournament memory. And we've had
Yep.
some good ones for sure. I'm not saying that we haven't, but like, just how many times have the Bearcats been in that, like, okay, first game of the conference tournament for us and we lose in just some like absolutely crazy fashion, or we lose a player or something like that. Like, countless times. So I'm glad that eventually, like, this one turned our way.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I think that's the best way to put it. It's you just finally got one to go your way,
Yeah.
and come out on top in a tough, gritty one at the end. All right. Next up on the docket, still not out of the season memoriam. Most improved player on the year. Hit me.
I'm going to say Seamus Lukosius. I don't really think we were expecting him to be a game changer when he transferred in. I thought we were expecting him to be a rotation player, maybe not on the starting lineup. I think we had expected CJ Frederick to maybe be in that role in the starting lineup. And if you go back to the season start, CJ was definitely on that list, on those starting lineups, and Seamus was just coming in where he filled in. And just to be able to come back from that injury and
Mhm.
be able to fight his way back and provide those two performances he did in those two games last week, he really became our most clutch shooter near the end of the season. Like, how many games was he the last bucket scorer for the Bearcats?
Right.
It was just like tremendous to see, obviously how he rebounded from what happened to him, and also how he grew in his role as the season went on too. So, like, all props to him, man. What a great season. And I think next year he's definitely like one of our primary rotation pieces, if not a solidified starter on this team. And like, it's just still makes me think about like what a full season of having him would have looked like for us. And that's been my running joke all year. But I still just think about it, man. It's like, if he wasn't hurt, or like not, if he was 100% in some of those games that we lost, they probably would have turned into wins for us. And like, maybe we don't shoot the ball as poorly on the road. Maybe we, hit a few clutch shots here and there, and games turn our way. And one of our other common themes was just about how poorly the Bearcats rated in the luck metric on Ken Palm. And I think that's
Great day to talk about luck.
yeah. And, you know, I do think we just got unlucky not being able to like see what a full season of him playing in a Bearcats uniform looked like.
Yeah, no, that's completely fair. I think CMOS is definitely up there. I feel like this one just has to be. I don't think it could go to anybody else. It's Dan Skillings. Dan Skillings, 100%. I mean, I think the way that he performed throughout this entire season, from where he started off the bench, and then turned himself into a solidified starter, turned himself into the story of the Bearcats season and the star of this team. And like, to do that from the bench, like, we all knew that Dan was talented. We saw it last year. We saw it, when he was coming in as a recruit, that he had a lot of talent, was very mobile, could slash and could shoot, and was very talented around the rim. But the way that he improved, not just from last year to this year, but within the own season and within the first half and the second half of the season too, in those separate sections, I mean, he made leaps and bounds from this season. And he was starting off, through some of the earlier games, we know that he had some kind of hot and cold moments where he kind of would disappear. But in the beginning of the season, he was, scoring a double digits here or there every few games. He had that big 25-point game against NKU. But he had like, you got a 6, a 2, a 3, a 5, a 6. And eventually, even when he started to, have some colder nights, he was still at 9, 8 points a game, 13, 14 on some less noticeable nights. And that I think is really huge because, like I said, he turned himself into the solidified point getter for this team. He wasn't like the let me go and get you a bucket in the clutch moment type of player. That I think still goes to CMOS or goes to Day Day. But throughout the entire game, he was we're going to call you back into this game. CMOS and Day Day had that huge performance, but there were so many times where there was nothing happening on the court. It was either Day Day or it was Jizzle James getting put in the rotation and absolutely lighting it up. You need a rebound. Dan Skillings is going to come from the rafters. He's going to get it 4v1. Like, his performance was just incredible in the back half of this season after he made himself a starter. So to me, I think it's a no-brainer. That's got to go to Dan Skillings. And I'm really excited to see how he improves on this season going into next.
Well, and then would you be in agreement with me that he is the most valuable player for this year?
Yes, I would
Yeah,
agree.
that's why I was kind of saving him for that. But
That's
you
fair.
you said it all right there, and to add more flowers to him, you said it. He came off the bench, joined the starting rotation, and I think for me, it's not enough that I give praise to my own players. I have to receive praise from other people, and but the amount of coaches who all gave him love, and especially Bill
Right.
Self, a guy who's seen it all in this league and gave him like so much props. Like I was, that was awesome. And
Yeah.
this is kind of a thing, in the feather of Wes's development, where it, he was kind of like we were kind of questioning whether he's good at developing. But look at Dan Skillings, man. Like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I know that's Dan putting in the work, but that's Wes's coaching staff helping him put in that work and become the player that he was near the end of the season. And you can kind of tell that he's like not the emotional leader of the team, but he's like the fun guy in the locker room. And like he's doing like the TikTok dances. He was like climbing up the walls in the locker room. He was like, he did like the too little last year. He was always just, he did the silent mode. He's like the fun guy who's also kind of like, the most online of the players, I'd say. So I enjoy him a lot. He's one of my favorite Bearcats that's come here through here in Wes Miller's tenure, and I want to see more from him. I'm hoping that he can continue to build on this because next year, after just a full year of Big 12 play under his belt, I really think he can do something special.
Yeah. I mean, I think Dan is in a very prime position to be one of those players that we talk about, through the middle and end of the season, that when you play Cincinnati, that's the guy you're worried about. It's not like, oh, Cincinnati's looked tough recently. We got to worry about Cincinnati. It's like, I want the guy that everybody knows that name. It's like,
Mhm.
you know, it's not like, with Kansas, it's like, okay, McCullough or Dickinson, you got to go through Kansas, but you got to go through those guys. Or Houston, you got to go through Jamal Shed, and then you get all the other guys too. Dan Skillings, I think, is that guy for Cincinnati, and I think he's a name that people are starting to get familiar with. And I would love for in the Big 12 having Dan Skillings to become more of a household name. And again, just talking a little bit more on his most improved too. 5.3 points last season per game, up to 12.6 this season. And also in his away splits, he was scoring I think it was 14 points per game on the road, which is definitely huge over his 12.6 average throughout the year. And I definitely think had he been injected a little bit more in the beginning of the season, that average would have been even higher. But Dan absolutely did a fantastic job this season, and like you said, super excited to see what he can turn it into because he's got a load of talent, and I think he's going to be that point guy for next year that we're all going to look to. But the most exciting part is beyond all that, you have a lot of guys surrounding him that are going to be coming back that you feel really good about. Um, Real quick, I'm going to give an honorable mention for most improved Or maybe, we're going to add this. All right. 6th man of the year. Hit me.
Oh wow.
I'll
Jizzle.
start. Jizzle James.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jizzle James. I feel like
Yeah.
it's,
No, that's the right pick. I mean,
yeah.
like
I mean,
that.
I think his position this year has been really, really strong. And it's funny because I honestly thought about him for a hot second as like a most improved, but then I thought about it more. I was like, he definitely made strides this year. But the crazy thing is, you see the amount of talent that he has. I really think he came in with that. Like, that's no discredit to Wes and saying that like he didn't develop this year because he absolutely did. And you saw him get a little bit smarter throughout the season, making a little bit better decisions when he had the ball in his hands. And I think that got it was a big piece of his game. But Jizzle's talent and ability was just off the charts coming off the bench in the beginning, middle, and end of the season. Like he did a fantastic job keeping us in some of the games. And I think for anybody coming off the bench, anybody who's not in that starting rotation, he killed it, man. Like he did a fantastic job. And I'm excited because this is the hardest part is you look at, I'd even argue this. Like he was not starting at really any point in this season for Jizzle, but we complained about this as Bearcats fans, and I think a lot of other people made some noise that they wanted to see Jizzle start. I didn't really say as much that I want to see Jizzle start. My point was I want to see Jizzle and Day Day on the court at the same time. And I forget exactly which game it was. Maybe it was a UCF game when we had Vic out or something around there. That's about the first time that we saw Jizzle and Day Day on the court at the same time. And then it started working. Like they
Yeah.
were really starting to put up some points. And you had the offense defense, but he also started contributing. And I think his defense got better through the end of the season. He wasn't getting blown by on as many screens. He still struggles with that a bit, I think, but he did a fantastic job through the back half. And just for sheer minutes, I mean, he started getting a lot of that load towards the end, and I'm excited to see how he can transition that because between him and Day Day, I think it's a very, very strong 1-2 punch, and I'm curious to see how that works out next year too.
Yeah. And like Day Day, I mean, props to him, dude. Like he steadily improved, and I think he won a lot of fans back after that West Virginia game too. Like I know we had talked about it. Like it's got to be hard for him and his family to like just see all that because social media is toxic. But
Right.
good for him to be able to like step up and like kind of shove it in their faces a little bit. Say, hey, I'm still here. I'm still playing. I'm still this guy. And credit to him, man. He showed up and he was able to uh, give us some quality minutes as this down the stretch. And it's not just become like, oh, you're just like irredeemable. He learned. He
Yep.
like made some progress, and I think just another full year within the system for him and Jizzle. Like if we start like playing that 2 guard lineup and really trying to just capitalize on that success that we had with them and Skillings and CMOS on the floor, like that's a deadly 4 players right there. And
Mhm.
just mix in Aziz or mix in Jameel. That's great, like 5-man lineup right there. And you just mix in rotation pieces where you can. But I feel really good about if they're gonna play the 2 guard lineup, those two guys, how they evolved when they were playing together this year.
Yeah, and I mean that's the crazy part is you look at this whole lineup, and you look at the fact that you still don't have Ravon in there, so he's going to be mixed in this whole thing somewhere next year. Probably in the void of John Newman being gone. But you look at all that, and then you add Betsy, and then you add McKinley.
Yep.
It's like, damn, it's gonna be getting crowded in some of these positions, and I think it's gonna be interesting to see how all those guys shake out. Of course, as happens every year, we're going to, in the spirit of St. Patty's Day, wish ourselves luck and hope that everybody that we want to stay stays and that the transfer portal works out in our favor and does not end up hurting us.
Do not take.
Because
Do not
everybody,
take from us.
do not take from us. Everybody ends up getting taken from at some point. But I do genuinely believe that a lot of these guys are bought in. And I think that Wes has set up a system where these guys, I think, should stick around and will be here. So, cross your fingers, say your prayers. Let's just hope that sticks to it. Steve, end of year report card. We don't have to spend a crap ton of time on this because we've been talking for a long time already, as it is actually. But it's
Well,
Sunday and we got nothing to do.
speaking of Wes Miller, I know we both gave a 6. Well, we averaged out to about a 6 of our 10 qualities, and that post did get some play. I would like to maybe like see before next season starts, kind of like the state of the fan program around him. Maybe like we send out a Google or something and try to get more fans involved, like a Google form. But to me, I think you kind of have to. I kind of have to up my ranking personally. I think I was at a 5.5. I'm going up to a solid 6 now, Justin. I think I was a little bit, just like upset with how some of those games ended, but him being able to, at least get to the quarterfinals, win 2 games in the Big 12, win 3 consecutive league games for the first time all year. And that ability of them never quitting on a game, never saying die, even when they were their most tired in the Baylor game, down by 14, cut it to 4 within minutes. Like, I I was impressed with how his teams continuously responded to adversity this year. And there were definitely some moments like after that Oklahoma State game, like they definitely could have just packed it in for the year and just said, all right, we're done. Like, no chance. We're not, like, why keep playing? And they didn't. It's a credit to Wes, credit to them, credit to the guys in that locker room that they stuck with it and they kept going. So just from that standpoint, Justin, like, would you improve your ranking at all of Wes?
I think I would. I think I would from where we had that originally. It's a tough thing to like really look at it and say with confidence that things didn't work out. And it's also tough to say with confidence that things went according to plan because you you saw just how many times we rode the wave this year, and the highs were very high and the lows were very low, and that's, I think, to be expected in the first season. And I think, unfortunately, like we said, there's so many times that some of these games got away from us. But I'll say, like, towards the end of the year, I think Wes improved too. Like, that whole idea of game management, I think he started to do a good job with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think, unfortunately, like, you look at the Baylor game as the last one that we've had here. And, like you said, hopefully we're playing some more basketball this week. But, I think that one eventually just got away from you just because your guys are tired. And I
Yeah.
remember seeing somewhere, I don't know who said it. I'm going to find it. I always struggle with this because I never bookmark anything like I properly should. But somebody said something to the degree of Wes saying in that huddle when we had that final stretch where the Bearcats finally like kind of clawed back. He said, like, to the players, give me everything you got. Just throw it all out on the court, leave it all out there. And then that's when they went on that like 10-0 run. And they did a fantastic job trying to claw back in that Baylor game. Unfortunately, got away from him, but you can see that he is a locker room guy and he's done a very good job of keeping this team together. And the thing that I love is there's none of this like side shit going on. Like, I'll say, like, through Brandon's stuff, through Cronin's stuff, like there was always, everything seemed to be okay-ish, but there was always something on the side. Somebody was unhappy. Something wasn't necessarily always going right. And that's the thing with Wes, is he's controlled that narrative in a very good way. And let his let his performances out on the court from himself and his team do the talking. And I think he's done a very good job at the end of those games, win or loss. He takes that to personally, and he takes that to himself, and he doesn't throw it on his players. And he doesn't throw it ever on the fans. He's not blaming people. He's like, we're trying. And, like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I know people sometimes can get sick of that, but I'd rather have a coach who understands the gravity of the situation and the gravity of what that fan base believes in and the expectation that they have, and trying to hold himself up to that standard than pointing fingers.
Yeah.
I cannot count maybe even one time that I can think of Wes pointing fingers at anybody that's not a Big 12 ref. Like, I don't think he's pointed it on anybody. He's always giving credit to other teams. He's giving credit to his own teams. He's giving credit to the fans, to the media. He has been humble through it all, and I really respect that. And for everybody who's just on the fence about Wes, there's a certain point when you can remove the element of basketball from the game and you can look at the person. And I think that that says a lot. Look at a lot of teams and look at their situations, look at their coaches. We have a really good one. Might not always be winning every single game, but you got a damn good coach. You have somebody who's fit for that position. And I feel really confident in him going forward. So, super stupid, long, roundabout way of saying, yes, Steve, I think that's I would boost my report card at the end of the year for Wes, give him a little bit of a curve there. And I'm excited to see what he can do next year because we got a lot more people coming in. You're probably going to have the last of the last era moving on. And so I think this is going to be a full Wes Miller team build. And it's going to be, you got the rust off of the first year in the Big 12. I really think that they can do something next year. And I don't want people to just be like, oh, next year's our year. I've heard enough of that shit. I'm tired of it. If you don't have anything to look forward to at this point in the season for next year, you're already sick of next season. Why are you a fan?
Yep.
That's all I have to say on that.
Yep, I agree. I'm with that. I am interested though to see and I'll update the graphic and see what the fan response is to me updating the graphic and saying we are higher on our stock of Wes Miller after we posted this. How do you guys feel? And just seeing what they.
And after a first round exit in the NIT.
Yeah, Justin, by the way, I just put out as we were recording our tweet. So I'm getting response. Well, because you remember the Cincinnati doesn't play in that shit, the secondary events. Apparently, people are inferring that was about the CBI and the CIT, those other invitationals that are not the NIT. But without when you don't, and it's not on Chad. He was just asking a question and he didn't name drop the NIT, but he said it was pictured as secondary events because all of these events are secondary to the NCAA tournament, obviously. And I just posted it and I am getting some responses about how people think it was about the CBI and CIT and such. But either way, I think it's still a good thing that they could have turned down this opportunity last year and they played in it and they got to the quarterfinals and we got to see Aziz play against us and he eventually joined us. And also I think and we had some back and forth in our Bearcat Therapy group chat, Justin, about what the value is of playing in these games, and obviously the transfer portal being a thing and such. But I don't think it's a bad thing, honestly, to play. And we'll get to it later, our preview. But I think it can only help Wes. And I don't really think it's the same as a bowl game, right?
Right.
It's low stakes. If you lose, it's well, shucks, we lost one game. But if they continue their development in real live games, I think that can only be a positive thing.
Yeah. Well, and let's look at it this way. I mean, I think people really get lost in the fact that the NIT and the postseason in general, but especially the NIT, is for the players. It's for the players and it's for the coaching staff. It's for the programs that want to play some more. These guys don't want to just be done. If you were to look at, I would love for any fan of the Bearcats who thinks that the Bearcats are above playing in the NIT to look John Newman straight in the fucking eyes and say, you're too good for that shit. You shouldn't be playing in that. There's nobody I think that could honestly say that to any player that they're above doing that because they're the ones who are out on the court. They're the ones wearing Cincinnati across their chest and representing the brand. They should get to play more basketball if they want to play more basketball. I don't care what people have to say. As fans, our opinion of them playing in it or not really doesn't matter. If the coaches want to play in it, if the players want to play in it, let them play in it. And you know what the best part is? Look at the atmosphere that we got in that game that we had in Fifth Third last year. That was electric. That was awesome. You got all the Red Sweater Club out of there because they're probably the ones saying that we shouldn't be in there because they're probably the ones who got to witness all of the Final Four, Sweet 16 shit every single year, Elite Eight in person. Well, some of the younger fans want to see them play more basketball, and some of the fans want that electric environment. Put it in fifth, third, get that high seat advantage, and get to play more games. Bring that upper crowd down low. It was the loudest game last year. Like from what I could see on TV, there was no game that was louder than we played that first round game in fifth, third, or second, whatever, however it ended up shaking out. I don't remember which one it was exactly, but that game was awesome. And it was cool to see them play in that kind of environment and to have that kind of postseason environment at home. Let them play in it. I don't care. Like, I think that this is good for this program. And as much as people are going to try to rat on it because it's not the real thing, it's not the big dance, there's still something left to play for. And like I said, like you're trying to talk about how you can, take some momentum into the next season. If you can make a deep run in the NIT, it just prepares your guys more for the postseason. And when they get ready for next season, they say, okay, we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to kick it up a notch. We're going to have to win a couple in a row. We're going to have to do that. Just kick it up a notch at the end of the season, get back into the big dance. But, take the NIT for what it is, man. Just it's more basketball. It's just having more fun. If you want your weekends back, or if you want to just not watch more basketball, then turn it off.
Yep. Why don't we delay that conversation further and we can talk some bracketology later? But
yes, sorry.
If you're going to be no, I am the one that brought it up. So excuse me for being out of line with what we with the show outline. But something we should talk about, and something that you should be enjoying with you while you're watching the Bearcats play in a secondary event tournament this week, is Charlie Hustle, Justin. And is it correct that they have something new on their website for Cincinnati?
They do. It just keeps coming, baby. There's something else.
I'm in love. I'm in love.
There's something else.
Whoa.
Get another edition.
Whoa.
Point. Nothing crazy here, but it is a nice addition. It is a very nice addition.
And we've been told from our friends across the 1012 network that this is the most comfortable gear that you will ever wear. So if all of our friends are saying it, you should believe our friends, and you should go ahead, take care of what you need to do at Charlie Hustle. You might have seen them at the Big 12 tournament this week. They were only on the sideline advertising board. Like, they're not some small company. They're big time Big 12, baby. And
oh yeah,
we thank them for taking part and supporting us. And you should support the people who support us by going to charliehustle.com, using that promo code 101215 for 15% off your first order. Maybe your first order is going to be this lovely Sea Paw hoodie from Charlie Hustle, or this great Cincinnati Bearcats diamond basketball hoop. I believe that is a representation of what Day Day and CMOS were doing last week in the West Virginia and Kansas games. Just ball going through the net consistently. So, again, go ahead and get to charliehustle.com. Use that promo code 101215, 15% off. 15% off your first order. We'll work on the deals. Maybe we can get a 50, but
we'll work on that 10-12-50. But for now,
yes, 15% off. Charlie Hustle, vintage made fresh.
Wonderful.
So, Justin, we were talking about how Charlie Hustle was on the sideline hoarding at the Big 12 tournament. What were your overall thoughts of how it ended with Iowa State lifting the trophy over Houston?
Iowa State did not just lift that trophy over Houston. Iowa State lifted that trophy up and smashed Houston into the center of the Earth's core with that trophy. They absolutely flattened,
destroyed,
like dismantled. So Steve and I and a few other friends, I put together a Big 12 bracket for us to all like kind of throw $5 on, just have some fun, whatever. I had one little prop bet in there that was, will any team score less than 50 points? I'd have to look at it again. I think everybody said no. And of all teams on all stages, who do you think scored less than 50 damn points in a game? That's right. Number one in the country seed, number one in the Big 12 tournament seed, Houston. scored less than 50 points in the Big 12 title game. That was rough, buddy. I understand they're saving. You could clearly tell, like, there was a certain point when they're like, all right, we gotta take the brakes off. We don't want to injure any more guys. We're already playing an 8-man roster. They brought it down to like 7 or 6. Like, take the pedal off the gas, but you gotta show up in that game. I'm sorry. Like, Iowa State dismantled Houston. And I don't know. I mean, I love the way that it ended because I think it just shows that, like, it shows the quality of Iowa State, but it also shows the quality of this conference. Houston absolutely deserved to, be in the place that they are. They absolutely deserve the 1 seed after the performances all season long. They're a really solid team, but it just goes to show how talented the conference is and how, even Iowa State, who's just been in that runners up spot this entire season, can go out there and just floor Houston. I mean, that was awesome. That was awesome. I would love to have seen a more competitive finish, but I think it was cool to see them perform that well.
So I agree, and I wasn't able to really watch the full game. I was just following the score. But did Jawan Roberts play on Saturday for Houston, or was he still out after the Friday game?
I'm not sure. I'm gonna
I
have
mean,
to let me double
go
check.
ahead and look that up. But either way, like as we look to fill out our NCAA tournament brackets, I would keep that in mind for both Houston and Kansas. That the amount of players they have lost this year, I don't know if they can sustain their high level of play for 6 consecutive games.
13
Throughout.
minutes from
Okay,
Roberts.
so he did play. Okay, but yeah, then they're keeping him out just to make sure he didn't get hurt. But
Mhm.
um, I think short rotations are fine when you know what you have and you know who you're playing against. And obviously, Houston, it didn't matter for their first 2 games of the tournament; they just kind of rolled, like they
Yep.
just took care of business. But then that third game, they were unable to really impose their will. And Iowa State, credit to them, like they really poured it on. And I don't know if this is a hot take, Justin, but like I mentioned, with Kansas being only having like 6 usual rotation guys, Houston unfortunately losing 3 players this season and being down to like 6 or 7 rotation guys. I don't think that those are your most viable options. Like if you want to see a Big 12 team win the national title, I do think that Iowa State is probably that team, but then we saw them last year, and then NCAA tournament performance doesn't really carry over from years. But
Right.
um, just watching Cyclone Larry tweet out, "If we lose today, I will tase myself," and it happening, and them just looking like just absolutely god awful, and just missing everything in that game.
Mhm.
It just makes you like wonder about um, what the viability is of Iowa State going into the year, but into the tournament. But with that said, I do think that Iowa State is probably our best chance at winning another tournament title, unless you choose Baylor. Like Baylor, it is possible that they could just be rested enough. I think they're just a little bit young, but Jacoby Walter and Eves Missy, like they're 2 dudes. So, what do you think? Would you agree with my Iowa State take, or do you have another dark horse?
No, I mean, I think, let me put it this way. What I've seen in most appearances in the Big Dance, defense is super useful, but shit, man, it takes one hot team on offense, and that's all you need. It doesn't matter how good you are defending the paint. If you get one hot 3 shooting team, it's lights out. And if you're not that team and the other team is that day, see ya. Hope you enjoyed your stay. Hope you enjoyed your first game, your first round exit, your second round exit. Like, I've seen this enough, and that's the only concern that I'd have about Iowa State. I think they're a legit squad. I think they could make a very deep run, same as Houston. But I think that both of them have some pretty short scoring on some nights. And we've definitely seen that both of these teams are built defensively. They're not going to change their identity for the tournament. I think they have an ability to shut down some of the, weaker seeds, some of the smaller teams, your 15 and your 16 seeds. I think they have the ability to take care of business. But like I said, you never know. You might run into that random, hell, St. Pete's is back in there again this year. You might run into that random high tempo team that just controls the game by making buckets, and there's not really a whole lot that you can do other than try to keep pace with them. And I think that the advantage here is that they are really good at making turnovers. So they create a lot of offense through their defense. But I think that would be my concern as well for these two teams. I think you just have to make sure that they have their on shooting nights through, the next 6 games. I forget who put it out. I think it was, I think Ryan had mentioned it from the SNH podcast, but those guys for Houston, like, clearly had a very terrible night on offense, didn't have the best defensive night either, but really had a very bad night on offense. Maybe they got it out of their system. Maybe that's what they needed. Maybe they needed that wake up call right at the end of the season to just say, like, hey, get it out of the way, get to the games that they still, the Big 12 tournament, Big 12 title game absolutely matters, but get to the games that you make that run, you can make the national championship, make that the point, and make that what matters. So I don't know. I'm really interested to see who can do it. I think there's some legit threats there. As a team that could make the Sweet 16, I also wouldn't put out like a BYU. I'm not super high on like a Kansas. Like I think Kansas is good, and I'm not saying that because we just beat them and some Kansas fans going to clip this, but with McCullough and Dickinson, they're still both not. I don't think they're going to be at 100% health for this game. I don't for the first game, and we saw them exit the tournament early not last year. Sorry, what was it? 2 years ago. So like Kansas, I think is either we're going to make the full run or it's going to be out early. And I don't know, just based on what I've seen this entire season, I don't know if they have what it takes to make a deep run this year. But yeah, I mean, I think a Baylor, a BYU could be really interesting. Even a Texas Tech, like some of these other teams are really gritty. I think they can make the Sweet 16. I think all of these are very capable of doing it. But I am curious to see who can really push past that and if maybe we can get a Final Four team in there. I don't want any more of those like Big 12 early exits. Were there any Big 12 teams in the Elite Eight last year?
I don't think so.
I don't think there were. There was definitely a handful.
No. Sorry. Kansas State.
Kansas State. Yes, you're right. But just got to have some more representation in there. That's all. That's honestly all that I care about. Get the Big 12 teams in the Elite Eight. If you can get them to that point, I think that shows your proof of concept and also shuts up all the bullshit talking about the net.
Yeah, well, and then we are, I will say, like, we are still within the premier conference of college basketball, and it's without question. But I do think that it's, eventually we'll have to just, and Kansas won the tournament 2 years ago, Baylor won it 3 years ago. I would love to see another team from the Big 12 win it this year, but I don't know how possible it is.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we'll see how this all shakes out. I feel really confident in the Big 12 this year. I think they can produce some, deep run teams, but we'll have to see. This happens every year. You never really know what you're going to get, and that's the magic of the tournament. Sorry, it was last year. I screwed that up. It was last year. I kept saying that they won the tournament last year. They won 2 years ago, like you said, but they had that early exit against Arkansas last year. And I think that this is just going to be, unfortunately for me, I think it's going to be more of the same, even though I'd like to see Big 12 teams make a run. At this point, you're on the outside looking in, unless you have like a team that in the Big 12 that you just absolutely hate and want to see die, you're cheering for the conference and you really want them to look good, because I think that some of these metrics, like you said, performances don't carry over from year to year for individual teams, but absolutely the conference's performances in the tournament carry over into how that conference is perceived into the next year. There's a reason why the Mountain West, they scheduled well, but there's a reason why the Mountain West is looking at like 6 seeds this year. And it's because the Mountain West performed. Mountain West did a good job, and some of these other conferences did a good job in playing in the tournament and had some teams that actually, did the business and put their money where their mouth is. So,
it also matters too, why you should root for your conference in the NCAA tournament. Those units, baby. Cash rules everything around me, and more teams that get to the Sweet 16, that more money that's rolling in. And hey, we're trying to match this gap between the SEC and Big 10 and the Big 12. You got to root for that money to roll in, baby. So you don't have to do the cheer. Like, you don't have to do Big 12, like the SCC. Like, you don't have to do that, but you can definitely like push for them in your bracket pools, win yourself some money and then win the Bearcats some money by unit shares.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm going to be putting a lot of Big 12 teams making at least the Sweet 16. And so if they don't do that, I'm going to be extremely disappointed and I'm going to be a little concerned concerned that we're going to have some difficulties trying to get back in the rankings next year if we're not just, beating everybody off the face of the earth. So, I don't know. We'll see. But that's the big dance. That's the Big 12 tourney. Steve, are there any closing thoughts on the NIT before we move on to the Bearcat Sports wrap up?
So again, I tweeted out Chad Brendel's tweet from 2 years ago. I'm not blaming Chad. I want to clarify that. I'm not saying that he did anything wrong. I'm just wondering who gave him the quote about. So here's the tweet that I'm referencing from March 13th, 2022 from Chad. Thought you guys would appreciate this. When I was digging around yesterday to see if playing in one of the secondary events was an option, a source told me, quote, Cincinnati doesn't play in that shit, end quote. Now, I consider the NIT, like I mentioned earlier, to be a secondary event because obviously March Madness is the only primary event. Nobody really cares about getting to the NIT other than Xavier fans who will share their NIT championship banner proudly. So, and good for them, winning those secondary championships.
Or you
means a
could
lot.
be UCF and hang a NIT second round banner.
That too. Yes.
That one's embarrassing. That's
yeah.
embarrassing.
Yeah, you don't see us hanging a banner for reaching the NIT quarterfinals last year because we don't have any banners anymore, and they need to be brought back. So let's fix that. But I think that I don't even think we were even like going to be considered to be in the NIT in 2022. But still, we should have at least like gone. And if we had been invited, we should have played. And I was happy to see that the guys. This past week were excited and looking forward to playing again in another tournament. So, look, here's the thing about this year's NIT. We don't have to worry about the court anymore because the court's done. So, and if you get a high enough seed, you potentially have a chance to play all of those games at home leading up to the semifinals and finals. And Justin, I mentioned it last year, but again, if they make it to the semifinals this year, it's in Vegas on like a Tuesday night. That's like a $15 flight for me. Guess who's going? And day of tickets, like figure that out later. Guess who's going to be there
We said
in
it
Las
last
Vegas?
year. We're gonna hold it. We're gonna hold ourselves to it. If they go to the NIT final, I'm gonna be flying out to Vegas. I'm gonna take the day off of work. I'm gonna go.
Yep. Yes. We're in. We're all in. So from nitbracketology.com, I don't know who this person is. I kind of want to find the Crow guy because there's a NIT the Crow. The Barking Crow. Yeah, NIT bracketology. So their most recent update is after the A10 tournament championship today. So we would be playing, and Barking Crow has us in the St. John's region as the number 2 seed, hosting Bradley to start the tournament. And then if you win that first round game, you play the winner of Utah, UNLV, and then in the quarterfinal, you would either play St. John's, Florida State, LSU, or UCF. So again, and it's like when number 1 seeds in the NIT get knocked out all the time, so it's theoretically possible you could play 3 games at home if you were to win. And like you said, if they do the thing with the open seating again this year for the NIT, like just all the rowdy people that are down in the lower bowl, like can get all rowdy again. That would be a lot of fun. I would enjoy that. I saw Bradley play for a little bit in the MVC tournament. They're fine. I think, we could perform well in that game. We obviously have probably a little bit more talent than them and feeling more confident in ourselves after our Big 12 tournament performances. But regardless, Justin, I think it's fine to keep playing in this event just because we're not at that level that we were in the 90s where if we had one down year, we could just say, okay, we don't want to play in that. Like North Carolina, people gave them crap for it last year for turning down the NIT bid, but they had just played in the national championship game the year before, man. Like they are allowed to do that. And as a UC fan, we haven't made the big dance in 5 years. I don't think we are allowed to turn down. Like, I think it should be a performance-based option, which allows you to turn down like an NIT bid. Like, if that makes sense, you can't just turn it down just because
Right.
like you're feeling sorry for yourself. I'm glad that UC looks like they want to be involved in the event, and I just want to see these guys play a couple more home games.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing is like, get yourself back up to where that tweet makes sense. Get yourself back up to the point where it's like, yeah, no, Cincinnati doesn't play in that shit. Cincinnati plays in the big dance, and they're in the big dance every year because that's the way that it should be. And
Yeah.
hopefully we'll get back there at some point. But again, fortunately, the Bearcats played themselves off of the bubble. Well, really, I think Baylor played Cincinnati off the bubble, but I think a lot of teams played a lot of other teams off the bubble. Really interested to see how bracketology sits out for this selection show coming up here in what, 2 hours? Hour?
About 15 minutes. Oh no, it's half hour.
Oh, yeah. Central time. God's time. It's 5
Uh,
o'clock.
Justin, I am just now learning that the NIT Final Four will be in Indianapolis this year, so probably
What?
better for you to go.
Oh, man. I want to go to Indianapolis.
It's actually at Butler this year. So, but hey, think about that though. Cincinnati fans taking the 90-minute drive up to take over Hinkle
That's true.
for the semifinals. I mean, again, you don't want to play in this event, but being able to have that opportunity, I think, would be pretty cool. So,
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm not going to redact anything that I said, but Vegas is fun, man. Why not just keep it in Vegas? Keep it in
yes,
Vegas.
I agree.
I don't have anything against. Okay, I do have things against Indianapolis. It's flat and it's boring and there's nothing to do. Sorry for the folks from Indiana, and I know there's people that I grew up with and went to college with that were from Indianapolis. Sorry, Indianapolis sucks. But like you said, it's a very close drive for the Bearcats, and it is very doable. You can make the trip up there and you can watch the Bearcats win the NIT. We can bring back Xavier's claim to fame from what, 2021, the 69th best team in the country.
That's right.
NIT champions.
That's why we shouldn't expand the tournament, because I still want to be able to say 69th best team. I don't want 76 teams or whatever it is in the tournament just to lose that metric.
Here's my final question for you before we move on to the Bearcat Sports wrap up on the NIT. If you have to win the NIT, you have to win what? 5 games?
Yes.
6? 5? You have to win 5 games. Do you think that the winner of the NIT could beat a Final Four team?
I don't think so. Just because they would have been in the Final Four if they could have beat a Final Four team. But I don't think so. But just imagine if like Texas Tech makes it to the Final Four and we win the NIT and be like, should we have been in the real big dance? I like that line of thinking.
That's a good point. See, I think this is what Cincinnati gets to do. This is the best part about being in the Big 12 now, is there's a lot more transitive property wins. And we can sit there and say, damn, shit, man, that should have been us. But unfortunately, it isn't. To the NIT we go. We'll see what the Bearcats end up with. It seems pretty much lock solid that they're going to take that, whatever they get. So we'll see where it goes. Steve, close us out. We've been talking for way too long. It's St. Patty's Day. We got to get out and enjoy the sun before it goes down.
Enjoy the sun. That's right. I agree. We are going to do our Bearcat Sports wrap up / Cholito with green noodles in it. Shout out to Skyline for the green noodle tradition. Keeps it going every single year. I posted that picture, even though I'm in Scottsdale, because my dad visited Skyline today and got the green noodles. So shout out to Bill. Keep doing that thing. Thank you for sending me that, and thank you for giving me free content.
Shout out, Dad. Keep doing your thing, Dad.
Bearcat Sports wrap up in 3, 2, 1. The baseball Bearcats took 2 of 3 from Kansas at home this weekend, including a 1-0 win where they had a no-hitter thwarted in the 9th inning on a Kansas bunt hit. Very Duke move from Kansas. Are they the Duke of this conference, Justin? Is Kansas
they absolutely are. Everybody hates them and wants to see them die.
Yes. So it was very funny for me to beat them in the conference tournament, and I hope to beat them many more times. So UC is now 12-9 on the baseball season, has had a little resurgence over the last couple of weeks. and they will head to Miami this week for one game before hosting St. Louis for a 3-game set this upcoming weekend. So go baseball Bearcats. Keep on winning. Congratulations on your first Big 12 series victory. The lacrosse Bearcats, they had 2 road wins this weekend, one at Wofford and one at Old Dominion over today, actually on Sunday. The ODU win moves them to 1-0 in conference play, and they will continue conference play this upcoming Saturday at Nippert Stadium when they host James Madison. So shout out to the Lax Cats. Track and field, in their first outdoor meet of the season, Kiko Morrison placed second in the men's 400 meters. Spirit Morgan placed second in the women's high jump, and Giovanni Gutierrez placed third in the men's shot put this weekend at UCF. So congratulations to those 3. Swimming, men's swimmer Hunter Cabino is headed to the NCAA championships after qualifying in the 200-meter backstroke event. Shout out to Hunter. Go do your thing. Bring home a gold medal for us. And Justin, that is all we have today for the Bearcat Sports Wrap-Up. A little bit later as the spring season rolls on, but like we said, it's starting to get nicer in Cincinnati. I know we had a couple people in our orbit that were at the baseball game this past Friday. So continue going to those baseball games, those lacrosse matches, anything that they have on campus. Continue to support our Bearcats.
Very nice. Very nice. Steve, we've talked for a long time. What's the best part about March and spring in general?
No, I would just say, as a former Midwesterner, like the sun finally coming out, the temperatures rising, it feels like we're finally past the dregs of winter. We're out of the Punxsutawney Phil 6 weeks shadow now, and we can eventually move on and get ready for summer. Absolutely. That's what I think, at least.
I just cracked open the lawnmower, baby. Got that lawn fresh and green, full of clovers now.
You rocking the Monarchs out there doing that?
Huh?
You rocking the Monarchs out there doing that?
I should be, dude. I should get a pair of Monarchs just for that, just to really complete the look. Got to do that, like pair of like whitewashed blue jeans.
Yeah. You got to do your work in blue jeans. You can't do your work in anything else.
Get the white tank. That'll be the look. I'll do all that. I already. You can kind of see it. You can kind of see it. I got a little
neck tan back there. Yeah,
a little bit of a burn. A little bit of a burn. And this morning, woke up at like 6:45. Went outside with the morning dew. Cracked open the cedar, and just jizzled a full load of seed on the lawn. Just made it nice and even. Fresh coat. So that's what we're all excited about for spring. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us this week. We had a fantastic time through this entire season getting to cover the Bearcats. We're really excited to see what they can do in the NIT. Hopefully they can make a deep run.
You crazy, bro.
I need to sign off. Thank you guys for listening. Remember, we are members of the 1012 Network, so make sure to check out the 1012 podcast as well as the 1012 Network for all of the different shows within the network, and make sure to check out www.charliehustle.com and use the promo code 101215 for 15% off of non-sale items. Go find you some Bearcats merch. Find some other Big 12 merch as well. Get the Big 12 conference shirts and other gear. That stuff is fire too. So again, take it easy, Bearcats. Enjoy spring. Enjoy the sun. Get out. Go on a hike. Take a walk. Have fun. And enjoy the madness, because it's March, baby. And it starts this week.
The NIT madness.
Yes, the NIT madness.
Enjoy that. The Bearcats.